Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as FDR's, but hey, it's something. Now, this video will actually be kind of a two-parter. Not two-parter, but like kind of like a... Like, I wasn't entirely sure if I was going to do it just two things. But I mean, I guess I'll just see where it goes. Like, I know that for the most part I'm going to focus on one subject over the other, but they're two subjects that do kind of go hand in hand. That, you know, like it's pretty much this whole thing that's been dividing the left. But we'll get to that part when we get to that part. And the person who's kind of like the biggest member of one side of the aisle in this issue. Okay, so first, let's get right into the news. Still can't believe I just yanked that from Keemstar, just like, yoink. But anyways, this is from the World Socialist website. They sound pretty reliable to me. Judge dismisses DNC lawsuit. U.S. federal court exposes Democratic Party conspiracy against Assange and WikiLeaks. In a ruling published late Tuesday, Judge John Coltil of the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York delivered a devastating blow to the U.S.-led conspiracy against WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. In his ruling, the judge, a Bill Clinton nominee and former assistant special prosecutor for the Watergate Special Prosecution Force, dismissed with prejudice. Prejudice? Yeah, I don't know all the legal terms. With prejudice, a civil lawsuit filed in April 2018 by the Democratic National Committee alleging WikiLeaks was civilly liable for conspiring with the Russian government to steal DNC emails and data and leak them to the public. Jennifer Robinson, a leading lawyer for Assange and other WikiLeaks attorneys, welcomed the ruling as an open win for free speech. The decision exposes the Democratic Party in a conspiracy of its own to attack free speech and cover up crimes of the U.S. imperialism with the court activities of two parties on Wall Street. The judge himself goes on to say, if WikiLeaks could be held liable for publishing documents concerning DNC's political, financial, and voter engagement strategies simply because the DNC labels them secret and trade secrets, then so could any newspaper or media outlet. But that would impermissibly elevate a purely private privacy interest to override the First Amendment interest in the publication of the matters of the highest public concern. The DNC's published internal communications allow the American electorate to look behind the curtain of one of the two major political parties in the United States during a presidential election. This type of information is plainly of the type entitled to the strongest protection the First Amendment offers. So, yeah, just like the WikiLeaks attorney said, this is a huge win for, well, I guess primarily WikiLeaks, but the First Amendment itself, because now we have, like, verifiably just a legal member, like, saying, you know what, I mean, this just seems, I mean, of course it's logical to release this. Why wouldn't it be logical to release it? Like, even if it was obtained via whatever you say it is, Putin just goes over to the DNC, just like, hello, I am member of Democratic Party, I take this now, and gives it to Julian Assange. I mean, it exposes the corruption behind the Democratic Party. So, where's the issue? Like, I never understood this. For some reason, people are just like, ignore what the emails say, but we gotta pay attention to where they got the emails. It's like, but hold on, why don't you want to read what the emails say? Oh, no, it's not important. No. Especially considering the emails show, like, a lot of damning evidence against the Democratic Party in a lot of cases. And even nowadays, for some reason, people are just ignoring the emails. Like, I got into an argument with someone on this website called Our Campaigns, and they simply asked, like, do you have any proof that the Democratic Party rigged the election against Bernie Sanders? Then I linked them every single email that WikiLeaks provided, and I'm like, I know you're not going to read all 1,000 of these emails, but for the sake of, like, you know, if you want a more digestible version, here's the Secular Talk videos explaining just purely what the emails say. That's pretty much all he does. And then they're like, no, do you have any actual factual proof? And I'm like, but this is the proof. I don't know what you're talking about. Well, I mean, we can't trust him because, you know, he's a self-professed Bernie bro. We can't trust any media person who has an open bias. Yeah, but I'm pretty sure CNN and MSNBC, who just secretly stroke the DNC's you-know-what, I'm pretty sure those guys, they're completely trustworthy. So anyways, here's the next major story. Democratic congressman names and shames his own constituents for donating to Trump. U.S. Congressman Joaquin Castro, a Democrat who represents a large portion of San Antonio, published a list of 44 San Antonio residents on Tuesday afternoon in an attempt to shame them for driving and drive away customers from their businesses. Their crime? Donating to the Trump presidential campaign. Sad to see so many San Antonians as 2019 maximum donors to Trump, the owner of Bill Miller Barbecue, owner of Historical Pearl, realtor Phyllis Browning, etc., Castro wrote, their contributions are fueling a campaign of hate and that labels Hispanic immigrants as invaders. Joaquin Castro, the twin brother of Julian Castro, the former Obama HUD secretary and San Antonio mayor, who is also a 2020 Democratic presidential contender. Joaquin serves as chairman of his brother's presidential campaign, which currently is polling at 1.6% in the Texas Democratic primary, according to Emerson. Okay, so basically, I'm not entirely sure. Hold on, let me look this up. I think I'm... Like, the way that the website worded it seemed a lot more dark, so I'm pretty sure that I got this off of a conservative publication. But I mean, you know, let's just see how it is. Okay, not only is it a conservative publication, I was referring to the National Review, but it was also formed by William F. Buckley Jr. Is this the famous one? Yeah, I think this is the famous one. The one that said to Gore Vidal, like, listen, you queer, stop calling me a crypto-Nazi or I'll suck you in the goddamn face until you stay plastered. But anyways, like, the story is legit, but I think they worded it in a more heinous way. Like, personally, I kind of felt like it felt weird to me, just like him doing this. It felt weird. The reason why it felt weird was because, you know, Joaquin Castro was like, here are the people in my district who have voted, who have given money to Donald Trump. And then it's like, oh no, that's pretty dickish, if you ask me. Like, say I'm using this comparison, like, say Steve King or Duncan Hunter said, like, here are all the people in my district who have given a certain amount of money to the Bernie Sanders campaign, and then, like, dox their place of work and stuff. Okay, so it just felt weird to me. And I mean, and another reason why I felt that this was kind of iffy is, like, looking at the comments of Joaquin Castro's post after he did it, the comments were saying stuff like, see, this is why we shouldn't have campaign finance transparency, because the Democrats are just going to use it to shame Republican donators. Now, I also get, like, these weren't just mom and pop business owners. These were, like, the heads of the companies. And these were, they're not like Disney level size or, like, really big companies, but they're sizable enough. So, like, I kind of get why you would want to mention these donors, but I also felt like I also felt like that it was weird. It just felt weird to me. And it would be better if he just, like, called out the corporations donating to the Trump campaign or the billionaires donating to the Trump campaign. Not like these guys who donated, like, $2,000. Now, you could say maybe they're doing it via PACs and they're probably spending a whole lot more. And that may be the case, but call out the PACs. Don't call out the donors, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And the reason why Hook Wayne won't do that is because he also has, like, large PACs donating to him. I think he has, like, I think out of all the people in Texas, he's raised a lot more money, but that's different. That's beside the point. The next story comes from Puerto Rico. Wanda Vasquez becomes Puerto Rico's third governor in a week after the island's highest court ruling. Puerto Rico's Supreme Court ruled that the process used by Ricardo Rosselló, I guess that's his name, to name Pedro Pierluisi, gotta stop saying these Hispanic names, as his successor was unconstitutional. Puerto Rico's Justice Secretary Wanda Vasquez became the third person in a week to occupy the post for governor in the U.S. territory. Vasquez was sworn in late Wednesday afternoon, hours after the island Supreme Court unanimously ruled that the law used by the current governor to name Pedro as his successor was unconstitutional. The Supreme Court decision came after the Senate President Thomas Rivera Scats filed a lawsuit on Monday asking the courts to immediately remove Pierluisi from the post based on the fact that the events didn't follow the Constitution. Vasquez, who was appointed as Justice Secretary in 2017, is seen as loyal to Rosselló, and protesters gathered in front of the governor's mansion shortly after she was sworn in. The hashtag WandaRenuncia was already trending on Twitter. I arrived at this position by a constitutional provision and the opinion of the law, but with the greatest respect and determination to serve the people to push Puerto Rico forward, said Vasquez in a statement after being sworn in. It is with great humility and commitment that I assume the position to direct the destinies of our country and the responsibility and delivery. First of all, Vasquez, you're not a country. Puerto Rico's not a country, it's a territory. It's at most a state that has no power. But I mean, I called out back in the video that I did prior to this, that I also talked about Puerto Rico in. Whatever's the last video I talked about Puerto Rico in, I called out, like, it was weird because he was sworn in as Secretary of State, and then he was also sworn in as governor, like, at least in the same week. And it made me, like, raise my eyebrow, like, this is weird, but, you know, like, the protesters, they clearly don't want just Ricardo's next heir. They don't want Ricardo's heir. They want something new. They want a fresh face. I think Carmen Cruz, I forget her middle name, but, like, the Puerto Rico woman who was a mayor of San Juan, who's in charge of, like, an aspect of the Bernie campaign, like, she's a campaign co-chair. She's running for governor, so she's probably got the best chance out of all of them. Okay, so the next story is coming from a interesting story that I kind of neglected, and I'm using an old article, but this is pretty much all the same stuff. It's pretty much just catching up the drift. Jeffrey Epstein is a well-known guy for a number of reasons. Like, he started out just being like a small, like an investor of some kind. But then he also had a side business of human trafficking. So pretty much his job in this field would be pretty much, you want a little girl to, you know, do a little of the old in out with? I can get you one. He had a plane, I believe, called, like, he had a plane called, like, the Lolita Express. I think that's, yeah. Like, he would lend girls to whoever. Well, it turns out Jeffrey Epstein, it finally caught up to him, and he was arrested. Now, the thing about Jeffrey Epstein being arrested was, originally, the whole thing was, like, he knew where all the bodies were buried. He had connections to everybody. Trump, Clinton, every Hollywood pedophile. He had connection to everybody. And, well, then came the big thing where he was found apparently trying to kill himself after a suicide attempt. And he was either beat up, or I forget. He was either beat up or he tried to kill himself. Or that's what they want you to think. But he was in there, and that's what happened. That's what was reported. He was either beaten up or he was trying to kill himself or whatever. And that led people to raise an eyebrow because Epstein knows where all the bodies are buried. It could hypothetically be anybody who sent someone to kill him. Trump, Clinton, literally anybody. Anybody could have known. Anybody could have sent him to kill him. Hell, for all I know, this person could have tried to kill him. Because, here's the thing. Apparently, one person has... Well, I mean, like, not only one person, but like a couple of people have been brought down. But the most prevalent one, at least here in the U.S., is Bill Richardson, former governor of New Mexico, and former presidential candidate. He was named as a person that Epstein sent a girl to go have sex with. So, that is... that's damning for Bill, and that's clearly just a taste of what was to come. And that's why Epstein was seen as a very high-profile catch, because if you shoot Epstein, 100 people, no, 1,000 people, no, like 1 million people will die. Because you get the info out of him, you can arrest pretty much everybody. Well, I mean, you can't now because Epstein apparently killed himself. Apparently. Now, I'm not going to be all conspiratorial. I could be, but I'm not going to be entirely, but there's been prevailing technically 3 major theories of what happened. 1, Epstein joined the Clinton body count. You know, because Clinton has that whole thing where a lot of people who get to her wind up dead. I'm not entirely sure if it's 100% legitimate. I used to believe it, but I mean, I don't entirely know. I was like 16 at the time, so maybe, I don't know. Because a lot of people are like, well, I mean, I don't, like Joe Rogan himself has pretty much said, like, I don't know if she did kill people, but I think, I worry that she might have killed people. But I mean, there's apparently a lot of people who have been around Clinton that have died. The most high profile I can think of is Vince Foster. Vince Foster, and this is like way back in the day. Vince Foster, like, he was a White House counsel, and then he turned up dead. And it was ruled as a suicide, but many people have been thinking, maybe it's not? Not entirely sure why they think Clinton killed him. But that's just a thing. That's just a thing people believe. Not entirely sure. 2 is that somehow Trump killed him. Because, you know, Epstein was seen as a really big friend of Trump and a really big friend of Clinton. So it's natural to assume one of the two probably could have had a hand in his death. Okay, those are the two big prevailing conspiracy theories. And 3, the one that I guess is technically the most logical theory, that Epstein did kill himself. Like, he just actually killed himself. Now, what do I think? Well, I'm not entirely sure, because, I mean, again, I haven't really seen all the info laid out in front of me. It's entirely possible somebody could have killed him. It's entirely possible. Like, again, for all we know, Bill Richardson could have sent a hitman. We don't know. But I do think that Epstein, at least, like, think about it in this way. You're in a boat, and it's filling up with water, and you're gonna drown. You know you're gonna drown. You just know it. It's coming up. The water's rising up. You know it's gonna happen. You can't call for help. There's no one there. But, like right above, like right next to you, floats a knife. You could sit there and wait to drown. You can grab that knife and kill yourself. What are you gonna do? That was probably what happened with Epstein. He knew something was going to happen. He was going to get ramifications. And they decided that rather than wait for these big and powerful people to kill him, that he would go out on his own terms. And I mean, it's considered nobler to go out on your own terms. But I mean, considering any of the info Epstein could have given us could have led to thousands of predators being arrested, Epstein pulled a dick move. Like, I mean, he already sex trafficked to little girls. Why not give us one more dick move before you go to hell? Well, I mean, if there was one. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But anyways, the next story is kind of a development for 2020 in some ways. It's technically something that I have reported on in the past, but there was a lot of hiccups with that. There was one candidate that was reportedly, even I reported it, qualified for the 2020 debates, but then the DNC was like, psych, nope, you don't qualify at all. But then he qualified again. Who is that candidate, you may ask? Well,
Yang Gang 2020. Yang Gang 2020.
That's right, boys. Andrew Yang ain't going nowhere. Like, this is good. Like, no matter what your view on Andrew Yang is, this is inevitably a good thing, because it shows that Yang's campaign is overpowering the establishment trying to silence all these progressive voices. You know, Bernie, Tulsi, Yang, Williamson, Warren, if you believe she's a progressive. The media does try to silence them a lot. I mean, clearly they don't do that with Warren as much, because Warren's got that whole thing where she's like the bisexual of progressives versus corporatists. But, you know, Yang, he's, again, this is actually a big thing for me, because, again, it's the thing I tout with. Like, I was the first new left media person to talk about Andrew Yang, as far as my knowledge. Don't take this away from me, anyone. John Munitz already took away Mike Gravel. I'm gonna keep Andrew Yang. It's like the 4th video on my channel. He's in the thumbnail, Andrew Yang. And, of course, like, I mean, because, remember, the rules of this debate are a little different. It's not just anybody who can get in. You have to meet both qualifications. You can't just meet one. So, again, here's the breakdown for those who don't know. September debate. Here are the 9 candidates that qualify. Joe Biden, Pete Buttigieg, Kamala Harris, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Cory Booker, Beto O'Rourke, Amy Klobuchar, Andrew Yang. Now there are 2 that have met one qualification, Julian Castro and Tulsi Gabbard, have met the donor threshold. And here's the status on a couple of the other guys. Tom Steyer is one pull away from meeting the polling threshold. He has not revealed what his numbers are. The rest of the candidates are not anywhere close to meeting either deadline. But here's the thing. The thing about this debate is many people have actually been speculating that the October debate might actually have more candidates than the September debate. Because the September debate and the October debate, I believe, have they have the same qualifications, but the dates are slightly different. Like, if you meet the qualification for the September debate, I believe the September debate according to this, it says September 12th, but they said, like, the October debate is, like, it's, like, 2 weeks away. It's 2 weeks after the September debate, I believe. Or at least there's, like, weird rules on that regard. Pretty much everybody who meets the qualifications for the September debate automatically get on the stage in the October debate. But all the candidates who didn't make it still have a certain amount of time to get on the October stage. So hypothetically, let's say me, Niall Elkim, John Munitz, Cenk Uygur, Kyle Kulinski, and Jimmy Dore, or whatever. I didn't need to put that many people, but let's say all of us were running for president. And then Jimmy Dore and Cenk Uygur, Kyle Kulinski, and Niall Elkim meet the qualifications, but me and John get left in the dust. They meet the September qualifications, but then me and John, we're not that far away from meeting either qualifications. Like, I only have the donor threshold, and he only has the polling threshold. I still have enough time to get on me and John both still have enough time to get on the next debate stage. So, yeah, that's the whole weird thing about that debate. And now, the next story is a story that was inevitable, but is sad. Mike Gravel drops out of 2020 race. He never wanted to be president anyway. Former Alaska Senator and anti-war activist Mike Gravel, who announced in April that he was running for president in order to get the other 20-something candidates to reckon with the American imperialism, has officially ended his run. There had already been murmurs surrounding Gravel's dropout last month, and the candidate announced on Twitter that it would be looking to donate leftover funds because the campaign was nearing its conclusion. But on Tuesday, it became official. In a video on his Twitter, Gravel announced that he was endorsing Senator Bernie Sanders because his democratic socialism would benefit all Americans. To be fair, he also technically he technically also endorsed Tulsi Gabbard, because there's this whole debacle. Niko was involved in it. It was like he announced, like Gravel said, like, when the media kept pressing him on an endorsement, they're like, hey, who are you going to endorse? Are you going to endorse Bernie, Tulsi? Are you going to endorse Warren, Yang, Williamson, Biden? Gravel was like, well, the three candidates I like the most are Bernie, Tulsi, and Warren. Mike Gravel had expressed very clearly that he was going to endorse Tulsi Gabbard after, like, when he was on Niko's show. But there was, like, a little bit of a debacle because there were some times where he'd say, like, oh, I'm endorsing Bernie, or I'm endorsing Bernie or Tulsi, or I'm endorsing Tulsi, or he wasn't entirely clear. But then came his official Twitter announcement where he said, I am endorsing Bernie Sanders. And then Bernie retweets and says, thank you, Mike. It's really cool, bro. Thank you. We really appreciate your support, dude. But then Primo Nutmeg releases a video where Gravel says that he's endorsing both Bernie and Tulsi, and that Tulsi or Bernie, whoever the American people decide will be the nominee, is who he's officially endorsing. But the other one gets like a little bit of an endorsement. Now, who do I believe? well, I'm not saying anybody's a liar, except I am. But I think the real thing is, like, the specifics. That's the whole thing. Because here's the thing about Gravel. Gravel's endorsements have always been kind of interesting. Like, Gravel has not... Like, out of all of the 2020 contenders, many people like to say, many people like to play the endorsement game when talking about, like, 2020 progressives. Like, oh, Warren's not a progressive because she didn't endorse Bernie. Or Tulsi isn't a progressive because she didn't endorse Jill Stein. Or Bernie's not a progressive because he didn't endorse Jill Stein, or whatever. Like, we have to acknowledge 100% that every candidate makes a bad decision in regards to an endorsement. Everybody. Like, there's going to be some races that we say, Bernie, you need to endorse this person instead of this person. But he won't. For one reason or another. And it's just inevitable. We gotta face the facts of the situation. There's some endorsements that they just won't make. Some make less sense than others. Like, for example, Tulsi Gabbard, she endorsed Phil Murphy over Alan Grayson during the Florida gubernatorial race. I don't entirely know why, but I mean, it's the decision she made. Bernie chose to just skip Cynthia Nixon in the New York gubernatorial race. Like, literally, it's kind of funny. Everybody noticed that he wasn't endorsed her, but he does have a reason. Like, I mean, it's a hidden reason, but we kind of see the reason. Like, he was like, I am proud to endorse Zephyr Teachout for Attorney General and Jermaine Williams for, Lieutenant Governor. And then he said, like, he was also going to endorse, I think it was Julia Salazar, because I think her race was also that day. But then he just left the gubernatorial race just, like, the blank slate. Because he made, like, a deal with, like, Andrew Cuomo. Because Cuomo said, like, I will attempt to do a free college bill. But then, if Bernie had endorsed Nixon, then he probably wouldn't have done the free college bill. But anyways, out of all the candidates, like, I mean, it's also, like, Gravel has also been the most interesting in regards to endorsements. Let me explain. Like, here's his first, like, I mean, aside from, like, his first official political endorsement that I have seen is in the 1972 presidential election in the Democratic Party. He endorsed Edmund Muskie. Now, personally, I would have preferred if he endorsed, someone like Shirley Chisholm or Eugene McCarthy, but whatever. I think Muskie was also a pretty progressive candidate. Then the next endorsement was in the 2000 Democratic primaries where he endorsed Al Gore. It's weird, but whatever. It's weird because most progressives gave Bill Bradley their endorsement, and I felt it was really weird. Like, but then again, Gravel isn't entirely like a progressive. He's like got a libertarian stint, which I do too. But I mean, I find it a little weird that he would just ignore some. Like, I mean, again, it's weird. It's like this whole endorsement game is also weird. You gotta remember. Sometimes even I forget. When he was running for president in 2008, under the Libertarian Party banner, he endorsed Steve Cubby for the vice presidential nomination of the Libertarian Party. He endorsed Jesse Johnson for the Green Party nomination and for West Virginia governor in 2008. He endorsed Joe A. Murphy for Pennsylvania District 16, who was an independent candidate. Oh, wait, were they independent in that race? Yeah, they were independent. Sorry, because our campaign functions weird, where they show the current party affiliation of the candidate, not the actual, not the official one that they were running as at the time. In the Illinois District 5 special election, he endorsed Green Party candidate. He endorsed Jesse Johnson in 2010 for the West Virginia Senate seat, which was against, I think it was against Joe Manchin. Yeah, that race was against Joe Manchin. He endorsed someone in 2008. He endorsed a Libertarian for running for Michigan. And in the most recent one, in the Florida gubernatorial race, he endorsed Darcy G. Richardson, who, if you know anything about third-party politics, you'll know that Darcy always makes his way there. Darcy always makes his way there. He's running for president under the Reform Party, believe it or not. Again. He's done it before, but he'll do it again until he dies, I guess. But anyways, Gravel's kind of the most intellectually honest, I guess, of his endorsements, because, Bernie hasn't endorsed every single progressive. He always tries. He's in, the last time he endorsed a third-party presidential candidate was in, the 1960s. No, not 1960s. 1980. 1980, when he endorsed the Socialist Workers' Party candidate, Clifton DeBerry. That was the last time he endorsed a third-party candidate in the general election for president. Which is weird, because in a Washington Examiner, they tried to pin him oh, he did this thing, and they fucking got the wrong candidate. But anyways, now let's move on to the smaller party candidate of the day. Mark Charles. He's a Native American running as an independent candidate for president of the United States. Now, he's been making his way around the circles because, he's being interesting. He's running on a pretty, I guess, a semi-progressive platform, because he always makes his way into, left-wing circles. He's been active in 2020 groups, and I think a couple of Green Party members Sedanm, Kinemo, Kristen Moyle, Wasifa Curry have not endorsed, but given him airtime. But anyways, that's pretty much all I got from Mark Charles, because I don't know. He's been running for a while, and I think he still hasn't given out a platform. That's weird. But anyways, now let's move on to the main subject, parentheses S, of the video. Niko House. Now, let me preface this with the one thing. I am not a fan of Niko House. Okay? Just gonna preface it up front. I am not a fan of Niko House. Why? It's not entirely based on political reasons. One thing that kind of bugs me is a little bit his video format, I guess. He makes long videos, and then now I know it's weird. You might be saying, but you do that too. But I mean, I'm not entirely sure. It's just weird. It's just weird. Sometimes I feel like I don't have time to watch a 40-minute video, and I think in each 40-minute video he only tackles one subject, whereas I try to make it multiple subjects, with one being the main focus. And I think he does them all live, or at least it's the vibe I get from his videos. They all seem live. That's just how it is to me. It's just the basics of Niko, to some extent. Now, normally for these, I try to read some, biography of these people, but I don't necessarily see, not much. There's not much I can really get from Niko. Here's the most I got is this Wikipedia blurb that's an objective perspective on the political arena from someone who has been on the inside and on the outside. Niko House is a political radio show host who has worked as leadership on Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign, Ken Spalding for North Carolina gubernatorial campaign, and has written speeches for and advised several other candidates from both the national and local level. Now, the first minor critique I'm going to give is his branding is weird. Okay, his branding is Mi Casa, Su Casa. I'm going to assume he has Hispanic heritage or parentage or whatever. I'm going to assume that, I guess. Or maybe he's going at this from a whole college kid perspective, Mi Casa, Su Casa. I don't know. I'm going to assume Niko is... Oh, I get it. His last name is House, and, it's a house logo. It's pretty... That's a joke. But anyways, his channel is called Mi Casa, Su Casa Network with Niko House, which is weird because, I mean, the weird thing to me is, like, he calls it Casa Network with Niko House, when for the most part, he pretty much posts videos only by himself. When, you know, it would be better if he posted videos, like he could have, like, his show, like, a channel of his own, like, Mi Casa Su Casa, and then a channel of Mi Casa Su Casa Network, where he would, like, collab with people from his other shows, not his other shows, but, like, other shows that are in the Mi Casa Su Casa Network brand, much similar to the Twitters. Like, I don't have a network, so I don't know. One thing I will admit, I have been trying to get Niko and Jimmy to form a new progressive outlet. I guess technically Niko has already done that, but, you know, I want to kind of make a left-wing Young Turks. I know you might say, but isn't the Young Turks already left-wing? I mean, yeah, but I want to make a network to the left of the Young Turks. You know, like Young Turks before they went all corporate. You could tell they're corporate because they have sponsors. You can tell, like, literally, it's weird, like, I find it strange. This is a bit of a tangent, but, like, the Young Turks, they said, like, we need to have these politicians not be bought by corporations. This episode of Young Turks is brought to you by butt wipes. Like, it's like, okay, you're kind of giving me mixed signals here, Chank. For the most part, I don't think Niko has sponsors. I think he just does it via his Patreon, which is good for any left-wing members of the independent media. I kind of want all of them to be Patreon funded as opposed to needing to get sponsors. But I mean, I guess at one point or another, you might need to pay the bills at one point. So, I mean, I probably wouldn't do that. But anyways, back to Niko. I've been giving some positives about Niko. I also heard he's like a veteran. I think he's a veteran. I think so. I don't know. I forget. He said, like, in a tweet, fellow service members. So I'm thinking he's a veteran. As he mentioned before, he's been a person who's been in charge of some campaigns. Yeah, we definitely would want someone like that to be representing left-wing media at one point. But the thing that he's known for isn't entirely the best thing. You see, Niko's not really known for a lot of the other things that he did. I think he did a lawsuit for the Democratic Party. Not, I mean, against the Democratic Party, but he's not known for, like, a lawsuit or even so much for his show itself. Or the fact that he was a member of the Ken Spalding campaign, because who remembers Ken Spalding? Anybody? Is it just me? Yes. Like, he's not really known for any of that. He's really known for being one thing. Tulsi Gabbard's biggest fanboy. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, of course, if you go to Niko's channel or his Twitter, you'll know, and you just look up and you just Control F the word Tulsi, you'll get a lot of things. Niko's not exactly hidden about the fact that he supports Tulsi Gabbard. And, well, I mean, that's fair. Be supportive of the candidate you want to support. But the thing about Niko and the Tulsi support is one weird thing. And it's kind of why... to be frank, it's kind of why I do have a middle ground in regards to the whole Tulsi v. Warren Civil War. What do I mean by that? Well, the left is currently being divided amongst itself on the biggest issue. If Bernie isn't the nominee, where do you draw the line? Who else is really the real progressive in the race? And the thing is, there is a huge divide amongst the left. Some people on the left say the only other candidate you can trust is Tulsi Gabbard. Some people on the left say the only candidate you can trust is Elizabeth Warren. And some people say you can trust a lot more candidates than that. You're just not really being 100% clear. Some people are saying, fuck all those guys, and we need to support Andrew Yang. Some people are saying, you know what, screw Bernie Sanders, we gotta support Tulsi Gabbard, or whatever. Pretty much there's all these divisions. It wasn't as divided as, like, in 2016, the left pretty much had their guy. It was Bernie or no one. But this time, we have at least more of a variety. Whether that's a good or bad thing, we'll be finding out pretty soon. But the thing is, there's been a lot of divide in that regard. And some of the biggest opponents of both sides, I would argue Anna Kasparian or someone along that regards, like someone of the TYT network, either Anna Kasparian or one of the other people, is a huge supporter of Warren, at least being second best. Niko is, of course, more adamant in the Tulsi crowd, with someone like Jimmy Dore following up second. All these divides, and the thing is, a lot of these people are trying to take people down, using either underhanded tactics or just flat out ignoring each other's evidence to back up their claims. Like, someone who is, like, super against Warren would say, like, oh, you can't support Warren because Warren was a Republican for a long time. She became a Democrat when she was, like, 40. But then when a Warren supporter would turn that around and say, well, Tulsi has been socially conservative and anti-gay for a long time, and she didn't start supporting gay marriage until she was well into adulthood. What about that, dude? And they'll just be like, no, nope, don't ignore the subject. My subject is more important than yours. I'm not saying that Warren people don't do the same. No, duh. They don't, like, but the thing is, both of these sides of this argument, they do the same thing that they accuse the other side of doing. Stretching the truth, misstating the facts. They do it a lot. There are Tulsi people who say, like, Tulsi's been a supporter of Medicare-For-All for a long time, but Warren keeps waffling on Medicare-For-All. But then Tulsi will say something. Like, here's the thing that is kind of the weirdest thing in the most recent times. Tulsi stated something that was slightly wavering on the Medicare-For-All bill to an extent. Like, I'm not saying it does it 100%, but it does do it a little bit. Because Tulsi Gabbard said that she supported the idea of having private insurance, which is a point of contention amongst not just the mainstream media versus the progressive media, but also, you know, amongst the left, because some people like Kyle Galinsky say, no, we should have supplemental private insurance, where someone like Human Support would say, no, we need to completely abolish private insurance, because private insurance ultimately will do more bad than good. Now, I'm not personally in this argument, because, you know, as long as we have universal coverage, like, as long as everybody can go to a doctor if they need it, and they have the freedom of choice to do that doctor, they have the freedom of choice to pick whatever doctor they desire, it doesn't really matter. Now, here's the thing. Tulsi was, like I said before, or maybe I didn't, Tulsi stated that she supported private insurance. Now that caused some people to raise some eyebrows, because, as the Humanist Report pointed out, technically the Medicare-For-All bill does eliminate private insurance. Then Niko House jumped in and said, well, hey, no. Not only does it not ban private insurance, but Bernie Sanders has actually never been for Medicare, but Bernie Sanders is actually not for a single-payer system, and he hasn't been for a single-payer system for a long time, my friend. That's why he stopped saying single-payer. It's like, wait, what? Excuse me, Niko, the fuck are you talking about? And then he goes on in this tirade, basically saying, like, oh, the Medicare-For-All bill isn't even that good because, you know, you said it covers things that are only medically necessary. Well, what if something isn't considered medically necessary by a doctor? It's like, Niko, what the fuck are you talking about? This is a plan you were for in 2016. Why are you changing your mind now? Like, why are you changing your mind now? Like, it's why I don't entirely... Like, it's weird. Niko can just... Like, there's even a tweet that I have right here that says, like, thanks. Like, we were making fun of, like, John Delaney together. Me and him were, like, chatting it up, like, haha, John Delaney's stupid. Like Niko said, like, I was invited to the Democratic debate by one of the candidates. Can you guess who? And I said, oh, John Delaney. And he said, yeah, he really appreciated my stance on Medicare-For-All. That tweet wasn't even, like, what? June 20th. It wasn't even that long ago. Now all of a sudden he's like, well, actually the Medicare-For-All bill isn't even that good because Bernie's bill isn't that good. It's like, wait, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, here's the thing about the Medicare-For-All bill. Let me read you a quote from Bernie's Medicare-For-All bill. The quote that I will be reading is Section 107, and it will talk about duplicative care and what will be explicitly banned in the Medicare-For-All system. In general, the beginning of the effective date described in Section 106A, it shall be unlawful for a private health insurer to sell health insurance coverage that duplicates the benefits provided under this act, or an employer to provide benefits for an employee, former employee, or the dependents of an employee or former employee that duplicates the benefits provided under this act. Nothing in this act shall be construed as prohibiting the sale of a health insurance company for any additional benefits not covered by this act, including additional benefits that an employer may provide for employees or their dependents or to former employees or their dependents. The bill then goes on to list a lot of things that are covered under this bill, which include hospital services, ambulatory patient services, private and preventative services, including chronic diseases and management, prescription drugs, mental health substance abuse treatment, laboratory and diagnostic services, comprehensive reproduction, maternity care and newborn care, pediatrics, oral health, short-term rehabilitative and habitative services and devices, emergency services and transportation, necessary transportation to receive healthcare services for individuals with disabilities, home and community-based long-term services to support, and, like, it covers pretty much everything. The only thing medically necessary, or not even medically necessary, but, like, the only thing that is medically there that isn't qualified, that isn't covered in the Medicare-For-All Act, is elective surgeries. Like a face plant, not a face plant, but like a face transplant, or chiropractic services, something along those lines. But then again, those services aren't really needed. That would, of course, those services, like, they're not needed, at least for the most part. I think maybe if you got into someone who might need a chiropractor for, like, a rehabilitation, like physical therapy, then it might be a bit more of a needed thing, and then it probably would be covered under the Medicare-For-All Act. But you would get into, like, the bill pretty much covers everything, like the base, the things that are medically required. That would be things that people would go bankrupt for if they didn't have a single payer system. And Niko went into, like, a bit of a technicality by saying he hasn't said single payer, but Medicare-For-All is single payer. It's a government-sanctioned healthcare plan covered by taxes. That's the literal definition of a single payer system. And that's what a Medicare-For-All system would be. But anyways, he, like, goes on this rant like, well, I mean, she doesn't support Bernie's bill. She supports Pramila Jayapal's bill. Oh, really? Let's look at Pramila Jayapal's bill about the same subject, shall we? beginning an effective date described in Section 106A, it shall be unlawful for a private health insurer to sell private health insurance coverage to duplicates to the benefits provided by this act, or for an employer, or provided benefits for an employee, former employee, and or dependents of the employee, former employee that duplicate the benefits covered in this bill. Nothing in this act shall be construed as prohibiting the sale of private health insurance for any additional benefits not covered by this act, including additional benefits that an employer may provide to employees or their dependents or to former employees or their dependents. Wait a minute. That's pretty much word for word what Bernie's bill is. And if you actually look through the bill, there's pretty much no major difference. There are some, I guess there'd be minor differences, but I'm not entirely sure they're major differences. Like, before the show, I actually put the two bills next to each other in, like, a thing that would compare text documents. And there was, like, not that much difference. And most of the differences were, like, punctuation or spacing. Like, I guess one of the bills is smaller than the other. So, I don't know which one it is. I think maybe Pramila Jayapal's bill is a little more detailed, because not only did she, like, take directly HR 676, but she also went with Bernie to help write it with his Medicare-For-All, with his previous Medicare-For-All bill in mind, and they kind of merged the bills into one. And, like, that's pretty much the basics on that. I'm not a healthcare professional, but I mean, I have no experience in healthcare professional, but from what the bill says, it's pretty clear that it does and doesn't abolish private insurance. Like, it says we don't abolish private insurance, but it also says anything that is covered by the Medicare-For-All system cannot be provided by another insurance company. And it proceeds to list everything, ergo, private insurance would be obsolete. That's pretty much what it is. They should probably word it better in the word abolishing private insurance. Maybe you could argue that it could be worded better, but that's what pretty much happens. The private health insurance companies would just Thanos away. But another thing about Niko is, like, he never seems to accept actual facts about Tulsi. Like, let me explain. I mentioned how him and Kyle Kalinske got a piece of information wrong. And the piece of information was that Kyle Kalinske stated during a talk that he and Niko were having was that Tulsi was an early supporter of Medicare-For-All. An early supporter of a single-payer system. When I, in fact, showed them information, I told them information that showed the contrary. And then Niko was like, according to who? Lol. According to Tulsi's website. Because here's the thing, Tulsi has not supported the Medicare-For-All bill until 2017. She was elected in 2013. So there's 2 terms where she did not support it. Now, I'm not saying that Tulsi was, in the pocket of private insurance companies, yes, I am going to make it so that everyone in the United States dies due to lack of health insurance. Mwahaha. No, that's not what I'm saying. I think it's pretty much more of a, she didn't know that a Medicare-For-All option was an option. And now that she knows it's an option, she's I imagine she's because her website, she doesn't say she supports single-payer system, but she says, I support expanding Medicaid to all poor people, and I support helping, expand healthcare to every American. Well, not to every, she says she wants to expand healthcare so that more people can have healthcare, and a lot like that. But then, I'm pretty sure when Bernie waltzed up and said, how about instead, we have a system where everybody gets health care. She was like, I'm pretty sure she was like, wait, that's an option? We can actually do that? Count me in. Like, I have a thing on my Twitter, like, I call it Tulsi Gabbards Political Compass, and it shows, like, Tulsi over the years, at least based on public records and analysis of her political ideology and stuff, and it shows her, like, steadily go from, like, the blue all the way to the green. I'd say that's a pretty accurate way to describe Tulsi's politics, because Tulsi does have a very strong conservative past, but she seems to have, like, I guess, red-pilled out of that. But anyways, the thing, he seems to ignore a lot of info on Tulsi. Like, you bring up a slight information that's slightly supposed to change perspective on Tulsi, not even a lot, just a little bit, and all of a sudden, you're smearing Tulsi. Like, for example, Anna Kasparian's No Filter. Now, Anna Kasparian's No Filter, and Anna Kasparian's whole thing about Tulsi Gabbard is, like, Anna Kasparian's whole Tulsi Gabbard hatred, I think, is really unprecedented. Like, it's not needed. Like, her leading the argument saying, Tulsi Gabbard's not a progressive, definitely doesn't make me, like, idly go, like, yes, Anna's 100% correct. But the thing is, Anna shows actual quotes from Tulsi and video footage of Tulsi saying some things in the past that are a bit, like, eyebrow raising. I don't think it's 100% disqualifying because, again, I acknowledge the fact that Tulsi has changed in her politics, and the thing is, like, Niko says it's just a full-on smear job. And I guess I could make the argument that the written quotes could be smears because it could be taken out of context. But the videos are a bit more iffy. And I don't necessarily think that it was, like, full-on, like, anti-Tulsi or whatever. Maybe a little bit anti-Tulsi, but not entirely anti-Tulsi. Now, again, I'm not saying that, you know, like, I'm not full-on saying that Niko is evil or he's, like, purposefully trying to stretch the facts. Maybe a little bit, because another thing that was more recent was Tulsi's anti-BDS vote. Now, Tulsi's anti-BDS vote was a bit of a stab to progressives, especially the ones who were super pro-Palestine, because the House made a resolution that would make it would basically be like the government officially declares that BDS is bad. That's pretty much what it is, what happens with the resolution. And it kind of goes into the whole thing where a lot of states are outright banning boycotts of Israel. Now, there were a few people who did vote against this and actually stood principally. AOC, Chuy Garcia, Earl Blumenauer, Ilhan Omar, and Rashida Tlaib, obviously. But Ro Khanna, Tulsi Gabbard, and who's the other? Ayanna Pressley, and to a lesser extent, John Yarmouth and Peter Welch, all voted for the resolution. Now, Ro Khanna and Tulsi Gabbard were the biggest ones, the biggest blows to me, because I always kind of knew Ayanna was kind of, like, waffly, but, like, those two were kind of like the ones, like, these were the big candidates, the good ones, like, the 100%, they would always do the good things. But the thing is, they voted against it. I mean, not against it, for, whatever, I forget which one. They voted for the resolution, as in the thing that would make BDS not that good. But anyways, while most progressives in the political newscape, like Kyle Kulinski and Humanist Report, Jimmy Dore, and among others, use this opportunity to say, like, yeah, these are great politicians, Kana, Gabbard. Some even put Katie Porter in the mix, which I didn't like for a reason that I'll get into a little bit later. But they said oh, well, this is a bad vote they did. This is a bad vote. This is just pretty bad. Don't think this is a good vote for any of these guys, especially considering these guys have really progressive records. Niko, on the other hand, decided to say, well, actually, these are not a bad vote because it's a resolution. Resolutions don't do anything. Okay, yeah, then. What about Rokana's Yemen resolution? You think that does something? I get what you're saying. Some resolutions are made purely for, symbolic reasons. There was a whole resolution about, Donald Trump's tweets are racist. Yeah, that's definitely going to do a lot in the long run. But you could make the argument that this resolution does do something. It shows that the U.S. would, actually support the idea of BDS. That it has the right to exist and not just condemn this peaceful protest. And in a tweet that was given to me by DSA Otherkin Caucus, who has just popped up again to talk about Tulsi Gabbard a bit more, he mentions, or she, whatever, they mentioned that Tulsi also supported a bill that would make it so that they would condemn Hamas for using human shields. Now, for those who don't know, Israel uses that excuse for why they kill Palestinian civilians. Oh, they were human shields set up by Hamas. Well, then why'd you walk into the trap, pretty much? Tulsi co-sponsored that resolution as well. Wouldn't these resolutions, along with the Yemen resolution, do anything? Don't these do something? I mentioned Katie Porter earlier. The reason why I don't like her and I don't really consider her progressive was due to something that happened during the Yemen resolution. Ken Buck tried to add a bill, he added an amendment to the resolution that said we're going to pull out of Saudi Arabia and we're not going to support them in their, massacre of the Yemen people. But they're going to say, but then Ken Buck decided to add a part that said, well, can we at least still illegally wiretap them? And then Katie Porter and Jared Golden, people who I thought were kind of progressive, voted for it. And I'm like, nope. They were canceled. Every other progressive in the House did vote against that resolution, thankfully. But that's what I'm saying. You gotta actually, you can't, the thing about, it's like Jimmy Dore. Everyone complains that Jimmy Dore is a Tulsi stan, as they like to use the word now. But he fully acknowledges Tulsi made a bad vote. But Niko just literally is like, no, this isn't, you can't vote, this is a bad thing. You can't, this isn't a bad thing. Tulsi, it's a resolution. You can't, it's not bad. But it's dude, just acknowledge she did a bad vote and move on. I can fully acknowledge people that I like voted wrong on resolutions. Bernie Sanders voted for the authorization of use for military force in Iraq. Tulsi Gabbard voted in favor of FOSTA. Elizabeth Warren voted for Trump's military budget at one point. I can acknowledge that politicians that I like made bad votes. Niko, can you do that? Please. I would 100% like you to do that. We can fully go on a whole rant or debate or whatever. Whatever you want. I don't really care. Let me be clear 100% more. I still like Tulsi Gabbard. I'm not smearing her. I'm not smearing Niko. I'm not smearing anybody. I am simply stating my stuff, my viewpoints on this, and better improvements on at least the side that I think is, for the most part, more right than the other side, because I am of the belief that if you lay down the flaws of Tulsi Gabbard versus Elizabeth Warren, Warren's going to have one or two more flaws. Gabbard is still the second best candidate in the race. I'm not taking that away from her. I'm not saying that she's an Assad apologist. I'm not saying she's in bed with Modi. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying Tulsi Gabbard and Elizabeth Warren have criticisms. And as such, the people on both sides of the aisle who continually support one over the other and flat out say the other one just cannot be trusted and is not a progressive, they can also be criticized. And I would 100% be happy and fully content if we just sat down and talked about this, rather than just trying to debunk one another and smearing each other. But then again, am I just being a centrist in this? Whatever. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that bell to be notified when a future video of mine comes out. And if you're interested in more content from me, you can go to my website or follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Quora, or check out my articles on the Independent Political Report.